Alright, so for number 48, we're going to be sketching a graph of each of the equations and identifying the center and the vertices. If you look at letter A, and again, whenever we see the word center, that indicates to us that it's going to be a conic. So it's either going to be a circle, an ellipse, or a hyperbola. Now, we did also talk about parabolas in this unit, but a parabola does not have both an x squared and a y squared. It's going to have one or the other. Now, since this has both, I know that this is going to be either a circle, an ellipses, or a hyperbola. If you remember back, a circle actually has the coefficients of both x squared and y squared the same. And it's going to be equal to something which is the radius squared. So that has the form of x squared plus y squared equals the radius squared. Ellipses and hyperbolas are in this form. However, the difference is that the sign in between them. And since in this case the sign in between these is minus, I know that this is going to be a hyperbola. Now if you look over here at B, it also is a hyperbola, but we're going to have to do some work on that equation before we can graph it. So let's talk about some characteristics of hyperbolas. First of all, the a value is always on the bottom first. So that 64, a squared, is going to be equal to 64, which means a is equal to the square root of 64, which is actually 8. And b is always the second one in a hyperbola, which is the square root of 36, which is 6. So now that I've identified a and b, I can now go ahead and plot them, identify the vertices, covertices, and plot them. So again, my center is 0 because there's nothing added or subtracted to y squared. Those are both just x squared and y squared. If there was something added or subtracted, I would know that this was moved, but it's not. So my center is at 0, 0. A is equal to 64. So since that 64 goes with the x squared, I know that those 8s are going to be along the x-axis. So I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to count 8 the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Also 6, up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now in this case, with hyperbolas, the only thing that those b values are really used for is to determine where my asymptotes are. So I'm going to draw my rectangle in the center, and that's how I am going to draw my asymptotes. Okay, and now you're going to do the same thing here. Alright, and now I'm actually going to draw diagonal lines through each of the corners. So I'm going to draw a diagonal line here, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line here. Okay, and that's actually where my asymptotes are going to fall. Now if you wanted to get some other values, some exact values, you could plug it in, but we're going to we know that it's going to be a branch over on this side because again 8 was one of my vertices. My covertices don't have the vertex and doesn't contain the branch. So again, all of those b values are used for are basically just to draw your rectangular box to determine the asymptotes. And now you could determine the actual equations of those asymptotes. This would be a y equals 3/4 up 3 over 4. So you could do it that way. X, that would be the equation. And then this is just the negative form. Y equals negative 3 over 4x. Okay? And then, of course, drawing your branches. So my vertices, again, go with the x value. So that's plus or minus 8, 0. My covertices are 0, plus or minus 6. And then my center is at 0, 0. And my focus, I'm going to actually use the relationship a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm just going to plug in 64 plus 36 equals c squared. And that's going to be 100. And then the square root of 100 is 10. So if c is 10, that again goes along with my vertices. So it's plus or minus 10, 0. Okay, and those are going to be right in here, and they should fall right inside of those two branches, right inside of those curves. Okay. Now looking at B, again, we said that this was also a hyperbola because of the minus sign. The difference here is that I have a 9 and a 4 as a coefficient, so I first have to get rid of those, and a hyperbola's equation should also be equal to 1. So I have to divide by 36 to get that equal to 1. And if you notice what that does is that now makes my equation y squared over 4 minus x squared over 9 equals 1. Okay, and now that I have that, notice now that x squared and y squared have been flipped. But remember, in a hyperbola, a still comes first. So a, in this case now, is going to be the square root of 4, which is 2, and b is going to be the square root of 9, which is 3. All right, so now with those in place, I can now write my vertices and covertices, my center and my focus points, because I'm still going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm still going to have 4 plus 9, which is c squared, so 13 equals c squared, and then the square root is just c equals root 13. Okay, so that's why you have this plus or minus the square root of 13 for your focus points. Again, the first variable is y squared, which goes with a, so your major axis or your transverse axis is along the y-axis. So therefore I'm going to plot a point of 2 and negative 2, and then 3 and negative 3 for my co-vertices, and that's what I'm going to use to now draw my rectangle. So now I'm going to draw my rectangle. Draw the other one. And then draw my asymptotes. Okay, I might have to move them a little bit. It looks good though. Good estimate here. I'm going to have to move that one up. Okay, let me go ahead and move that one up here. Okay, so there's my asymptotes. Again, we said that a is 2. So here's my points of 2. Those are where my vertices are going to be. And then my branches are going to extend to the asymptotes of either side. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. Okay, it's going to keep going in either direction. Now this is again a rough sketch. Your focus points are at root 13, which is a little bit more than 3, almost 4. So they're going to be really close, right over the line of 3. Here's 3, and they're going to be right over that line in between 3 and 4. So those are going to be your 2 focus points. Okay.